Hey, welcome back to all of our fans. I think we have fans, but certainly all of our listeners and viewers. Welcome to the 34th episode of the We All Serve podcast. Back with the one, the only Angel Torres. And I know that because he has a shadow box behind him with all of his cool awards.
Yeah. Yay.
Thank you, Tina.
I always say that's who I was, not who I am today. That's what I did.
Oh, come on. It's, we say we all serve. You've continued, which is fun. So how are you? And I'm almost scared to ask you that question.
I'm good. Just muscling through some minor health issues, but I'm good. I'm great spirits. I get to come back on. It was funny. We were having this dialogue earlier in the weekend. We are just texting back and forth. And I said, hey, man, all three of our viewers. And you're like, no, man, guess again. And I couldn't believe the numbers. I was like, whoa, I have not offended that many people. That's amazing.
I know. It's pretty wild. I mean, We All Serve is really taking hold, which is cool. So as I always say in the beginning and the end of every episode, if you're listening to the podcast, you're missing out on the fun of seeing us in action. So make sure you get on YouTube and click subscribe. And if you are just watching live, you probably want to play the reruns of this too. So Make sure you're getting on your favorite podcast.
It's like watching the Avengers or something. You might miss some cool stuff.
You might. When you listen again, you'll catch all the nuances and the brilliance that went into it. But we're on all your favorite podcast apps, Apple, Google, all that good stuff. So make sure you are clicking on. But today, Angel, I know you and I were talking about this over the weekend. Today is a very special episode because we get to long overdue. We get to bring in our. It's the first of one of our brothers and sisters in another branch, and this is very long overdue. 34 episodes in, but we're bringing him in, which is exciting. So before he has the opportunity to react and our viewers get to see him, so tell me your experience in working with Coasties.
Well, when I came in back in like forever ago, 1990, 91, the Coast Guard used to send their sailors to sonar school because when I came in, I was a sonar technician. So we all learned how to use sonar because the Coast Guard on some of their ships they use sonar as well. And they were just the greatest guys, man. We had so much fun, and they had very, very dark, very jaded sense of humor, and I loved it. And then fast forward, it was like 13, 14 years in. And we were going through a boarding school, learning how to, not like boarding school, like you send your kids away when you don't want them, but a boarding school, like learning how to board ships and how to inspect for maritime interdiction, for drugs, for check if they're smuggling, for weapons of mass destruction. And the Coast Guards came and they said, okay, here's how it goes down. So, and that's like their trade craft. That's their, bread and butter, that and breaking icebergs and tendon buoys. But they're phenomenal at it, and it was just great to experience and to learn from them.
Absolutely. And so I don't want to get too deep into this discussion because we deserve to see his reaction. So let's see. There he is. Lieutenant Junior Grade, Dr. Vincent Thomas. First of all, welcome to the We All Serve podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let me get the official bio out of the way because you are a very well-accomplished individual, and amazingly, you are our neighbor in Evanston. So again, really long overdue. So Dr. Vincent Thomas has two bachelor's degrees in theology and philosophy, a master's degree in theological studies, as well as a Ph.D. in public policy and administration. Vincent Thomas is a commissioned officer who began his Coast Guard career as an enlisted operations specialist. His studies have focused on religious history, philosophy of religion, the relationship between religion and politics, military history, politics, public policy, as well as the effects climate change has on international relations, global economics, and global security. And he has been assigned to the BOUTWELL. and which is a high endurance cutter in California. He served in active duty on that ship and was part of a team that seized over 10 tons of cocaine in international waters bound for the United States. After leaving active duty, Dr. Thomas joined the selected reserves as a maritime enforcement specialist and completed, as I said, his Ph.D. in public policy and administration, commissioned in 2019, and now currently represents the U.S. Coast Guard Academy as the recruiting, outreach, and diversity admissions officer tasked with helping diversify the U.S. Coast Guard Academy and Officer Corps of the U.S. Coast Guard, which is a very important task, something that Angela and I speak about often. So once again, it is truly a pleasure to bring on our very first Coastie on We All Serve. Yay!
Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Yeah, we're hard to find. You know, you don't see too many of us.
Yeah, but the ones I see are incredibly impressive. Like, do you know Dr. Zita Merchant?
Yeah, she was a mentor of mine. She wrote my command endorsement to go to OCS. Yeah,
she's unbelievable, man. What a doggone rock star.
Yeah, truly. Not even joking. She'll be commandant one day, easily.
Right? That's what I thought. And the coolest thing, I was looking at her bio, and the coolest thing about it is, and what we all three of us have common, besides we're all follically challenged, is that we all went to Northwestern.
Oh, you went to Northwestern? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I was there for grad school, so I didn't really enjoy the festivities and the social stuff. I want to get in and get out to get you out of my pocket. So I was like, let me get in, let me get out, and move on. But yeah, no, I'm glad I went. It was it's a great school in a great town. Evanston is a town. It's not a city. They consider themselves a city, but I'm from Chicago.
They got some rough spots in that town, though. It's weird. Yeah. You got the haves and the real have-nots.
Oh yeah, and well, the city is, I think, 8.5 miles long, so you really see the haves and the have-nots. It's pretty vivid. Yeah.
So it's exciting to have you, and you have this unique, broad background, and I want to cover obviously your service, which is continuing. You are still in, and especially the efforts that you're involved in is really. Really important, talking about diversity, and it's we're in February, so right now I am very involved in promoting and talking about my brothers and sisters in the Army, Black service members that are serving in some amazing roles, and I've been reading up in my spare time on African American Medal of Honor recipients, and I encourage all of our listeners and viewers to look up their bios and read their stories, and the efforts that you are engaged in recruiting is phenomenal. So I want to go all the way back to when you decided to raise your right hand and take that oath. Why did you join the Coast Guard? And I mean, tell us a little bit about your training.
Yeah, so joining the Coast Guard, I'm a third generation military. So my grandfather was Army World War II. My father was Army Vietnam era MP, Sergeant MP. My grandfather was a parajumper. And so I'm third generation military. And going into the military was always a part of the plan. But if I'm being honest, it wasn't at the forefront of the plan, because my parents... wasn't the forefront, but my parents, my family, my grandparents, they worked really hard to make sure I got a good education. So I was in private Catholic schools my entire life, which means there was no military, right? I mean, it was go to college. So I did that, went to college, finished grad school. When I finished grad school, I immediately got a professorship. So I was 25, fresh out of grad school, started teaching in my undergrad alma mater, Elmhurst College, now Elmhurst University, and the philosophy department. Did that for a year and a half. And I wanted the Ph.D. I didn't want to go into more student loan debt. And I wanted a job where I was doing something more tactile. So I said, okay, well, I'll join the family business. Why not? So I contacted my father, And because at the time he had just retired from federal police. So he went from me as a sergeant MP directly to federal police because I'm originally from DC, where he's from. And called him, told him about it. He, said, well, you want to do it? I'll support you. I was in, great. What are you looking at? So I said, I don't know. Honestly, I did not know. And he said, well, consider the Coast Guard. Now, truth be told, I did not know anything about the Coast Guard at that time.
Most people don't.
This story gets better. So I grew up on the south side of Chicago when I moved to Chicago from DC, which is basically high school, 8th grade. I grew up on 79th and Champlain, right off 79th and Cottage Grove. My high school was 49th Cottage Grove, Post Franciscan High School. So we grew up on the south side of Chicago, 79th Street, 79th and Cottage Grove. The Coast Guard recruiting unit at the time was on 87th and Cottage Grove.
Okay.
I walked there from my house. Had no idea they existed. No clue. So I walk in, they give me information. I said, all right, I'm here to enlist. And at first they looked at me like, you want to enlist? I said, yes, I'm enlisting. So I enlisted, went through that, and then obviously went down, right? Coast Guard usually has, not usually, but there are moments where the Coast Guard has a waiting list. We have so many people. I tell people all the time, the Coast Guard is not a dig, but the Coast Guard is basically the Harvard of the military. We turn away more people than any other branch. The
Coast Guard Academy is no joke, man. That is really, really.
It's no joke. It is. We have some of the highest. Yeah, we have some of the highest ASVAB scores. I mean, I went in with 2 bachelors and a master's. I had shipmates who came in with 2 bachelor's degrees working on their masters. E4s, right? So the Coast Guard, I would argue, and there are people who would argue with me, but I stand by it. The Coast Guard probably has the most well-educated enlisted branch of any
they give you
branch.
guys a lot of responsibility at a young age too. I mean, the Marines does, but Coast Guard, I think at E5, you guys have like arrest powers. Like you're like a federal officer and stuff.
Yeah. So, petty officer. If you're a boarding team member, you have the authority, if you're a certified boarding team member, to board a vessel and begin the process of detaining individual as an E4. You could be an E4, really. You usually have to be an E5. You could be E4, and you can do that.
Yeah.
So I joined. I didn't have to be put on the waiting list. Had my 30 days, obviously, went to boot camp, Cape May, New Jersey. I intentionally chose to go in the summertime because I figured I don't want to be in New Jersey in winter going through boot camp. So I went in the summertime, had my birthday in boot camp, didn't tell anybody because I didn't want to, you all know what boot camp is like. So I didn't broadcast that I turned 29 in boot camp because I did not want to go through that. So went through boot camp, had my birthday in boot camp, got out, became an operations specialist, went to OSA school in Petaluma, California, and went to the Coast Guard Cutter Hamilton first as an operations specialist. The Hamilton got decommissioned, and we lateraled over to the Coast Guard Cutter Boutwell, where I finished my my flow career at the time. So I was on the Boutwell as an ops specialist in Combat Information Center, CIC, then qualified in combat radio, which is crypto radio. Got qualified in both of those. Didn't get my boarding team stuff until I became a reservist. So did my 4 years, and I started my Ph.D. while I was active duty. So when we were on the Hamilton and I got qualified, I was already accepted to a Ph.D. program. I just put it off until I got qualified. And classes, the next round of classes were going to start roughly 35 days after I got to the boat. I got every qual I needed in 30 days. I mean, because you have to stand, we call it GPO watch. You have to stand watch. You have to stand a certain number of hours.
The last 5 seconds, you broke up a little bit. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, so I did all my quals in 30 days because I had 35 days before.
So you're all an ass.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So you have to stand a certain number of watches to be qualified to be a GPO. So I stood 12 hours of watch in one day. because I was on duty, and I said I need to get my DC qual, my GPO qual, start my combat CIC quals. I started that when I could do while ashore, but I need to get DC and GPO quals out of the way before we got underway, so I would have the time to start my coursework. So I did that. 12 hours of watches in one day. Took the test. Did well on the test. Done. So I had 5 days. So that 5 days, I stayed on the boat, started doing other stuff. School started, and I was afloat doing work. So, for example, we would do the first patrol was the worst because I couldn't take leave because I had just gotten there. So we are afloat. I'm standing in my watches. I'm going through my training. I'm taking the test to qualify. And when I got off, we did 6 on, 6 off, which absolutely sucks. 6 on, 6 off is horrible. It's horrible.
Starboard, man.
Yeah, it's man. So for my 6 hours off,
and that's 6 hours of sleep you're gonna get. That 12 hours you're gonna get. You don't get that. You got stuff to do.
I got less than most because when I was off for my 6 hours, I'm either on the mess deck or standing up in my rack. I'm typing essays. I'm typing essays, and I would send them off once we got to port call. We get to a port call, I'd upload all of my essays for my classes and do work at port calls, and then I did that. After that, I would take probably the first week of my leave before we got deployed, because we give 3 days. We usually give 3 days off before deployment. Everybody gets 3 days leave if you don't have watch. That doesn't eat your leave time. So I would take that 3 days, take 5 days personal leave, and I would try to do at least 12 weeks worth of work in that 5 days. So I would wake up at 4 a.m. and just work from 4 a.m. to midnight for 5 straight days to try to get 12 weeks worth of work done. I would upload that while deployed and then finish the rest of it at port calls. So that was my life for 3 straight years. And then did that, and I said, I need to go. Our sister boat was constantly FUBAR, so they didn't really go out, so we had to cover for them. So instead of us doing, so at the time we were out, I want to say 6 to 8 months out the year, give or take.
But it's like in and out 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, in at 3 weeks, or is it just gone like a carrier?
No, you're out. We were high endurance cutter, so we would sail from the U.S.-Mexico border down towards Colombia and back. Up the west coast of Canada, across the Bering Sea, to Alaska and back. So we were high endurance. So there was, once you're out, you're out. You just have port calls. But once you're out, you're out.
You hear that, folks? The Coast Guard stays gone. They are not the weekend guys. They ain't the one.
We are not. People think that. People think they hear Coast Guard. Oh, you're just on the coast, because I think it's because usually what they see are the coasties who fix the buoys, right? The buoy tenders. They'll see them and they figure, oh, that's all the Coast Guard does is it. And tending is no joke. That's some hard.
That's some
heavy.
Man. That's tough labor, man. That's hard labor. They need to go get convicts to go do that stuff.
Yeah, even for the officers, that is hard. Buoy tending is no joke, and it's a responsibility because every ship uses those buoys to help them know where they are. For example, pleasure craft vessels, yachts, and whatnot, versus commercial traffic vessels. You do not want to get stuck in front of a carrier, right? A cargo ship. You don't want to get stuck in a cargo ship. They don't stop very easily. So buoy tending is serious work and it's hard labor. But they see that and they figure, oh, that's all they do. No, we pretty much do everything. We do everything.
You guys have to do the rules of the road test and at certain level, because in the Navy, only if you're like an officer to deck or conning officer or junior officer to deck do you have to.
No, if you're GPO, we have. I don't know if they changed the rules on the boat for GPO. GPO means petty officer to watch, general petty officer to watch. So if you're GPO, you have to know the rules of the road. We had E2s who knew the rules of, because we don't have enough coasties. One coastie has to do 5 jobs. Like there's not enough of us.
So that book is not easy to read. And that thing's like Sominex, man. You start opening that Corex book, you're out.
I stay
tough,
on
man.
land. I stay on land. I'm in the Army, and it's funny, Vincent. You and I were talking last week, and I was telling you about Angel, and
Yeah.
you laughed and you said, "Yeah, the Navy goes on boats, but they don't feel the water." You were describing to me being a coastie.
You all in the Navy.
I was on a destroyer on a DDG, and we got rocked pretty good. And the kids, there were the young kids coming on, and then I went to a carrier, and the kids in the carrier were like, "Oh my God, I'm feeling seasick." I'm like, "Dude, really?
No.
You're lifting weights. What do you mean you're seasick?"
Yeah. No, we in Alaska was the worst. Sailing across the Bering Sea to Alaska was absolutely the worst. We did that twice. We call it 378 because it's 378 feet long. Yeah. That's our largest boat. That's our biggest boat, right?
That's a cutter, right?
I'm sorry?
It's a cutter, right?
Yeah, it's our cutters, right. We got hit with a wave. I didn't think a stainless steel industrial refrigerator could fall off a wall. It was gone. We got hit with, it had to be 35, maybe 40-foot wave. The boat got rocked. We rocked, I think, 40 degrees. The mast, I believe, breaks at 45. We got rocked. People had to be put off the boat because they broke limbs, falling out of their racks, refrigerators falling off.
We used to like strap ourselves into our racks and stuff.
Yeah, we didn't do that. We didn't do that. No. Plus, I don't know if we could because the Boutwell at the time was built in 1968. So I don't even know if we could. We make it. If it's broke, you fix it. After you fix it, you paint it. After you fix it, you paint it. So that if it breaks, it at least looks good. I'm sorry.
Were you guys going up to Seward, Alaska?
We went to Kodiak.
Kodiak. Oh yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, we went to Kodiak. Man. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, we were happy to see Kodiak. You spend enough time on the Bering Sea, you'd be happy to see Kodiak. You think you were in New York City. Like, just please send me to Kodiak. Please.
Well, they got that 6 months of daylight and 6 months of night. They do that. It's like all night or all day or whatever.
I missed that. Cool. Thankfully, I missed it. Yeah, I don't think I would have missed that.
It was like it was daylight, and we would make fun of the sailors that would come out of the club with the girls that didn't look so good, and they couldn't say it was late at night. I was like, dude, it was bright daylight. We saw her; she was ugly.
Yeah, I missed that part. I wanted to see the Northern Lights. I missed the Northern Lights twice. I missed both times I went up there. Missed the Northern Lights, but I mean, I didn't know you could walk on walls until sailed across the Bering Sea. You will walk on walls. And we got into it once with the FSs, now CSs, the culinary specialists, the cooks, because they're making steak and lobster. And we're thinking, dude, who's eating steak and lobster with 25-foot waves? Like, nobody, I'm not eating steak. I lived that entire patrol. I ate ramen noodles, grits, and bread. That entire patrol. I just couldn't. You
couldn't hold anything down.
I couldn't do it.
So, Vincent, describe. You and I were talking about a couple of years ago during the government shutdown. I remember where I was. It was during the winter, and I was with some mutual friends of ours, and I remember we were talking about the Coast Guard not getting paid, and the Coast Guard falls into a very weird status. For those of us policy junkies, you understand that the Coast Guard does not fall under the Department of Defense in many areas, falls under the Department of Homeland Security, but that is intentional. And so this is getting very nuanced over here. But again, because we have not had a conversation with a coastie like you in the past, can you describe, it all relates to essentially what we're talking about over here, the hard work that you do?
Yeah, so we are not under DOD. Although we are fully military, have the same benefits, military responsibilities as all the other branches, we can be folded into DOD if need be. But we're not under DOD. We're in the Department of Homeland Security. Before DHS, we were under the Department of Transportation. There is a reason for this. We are the only branch that's both military, full-on military, and federal law enforcement at the same time. So that's in a nutshell. It gets more complicated than that, but in a nutshell, that's why we are under DHS and not DOD. It makes sense. We can board a vessel and it not be declared an act of war or violate, any posse comitatus rules or anything like that, because we are federal law enforcement. More often than not, especially in the United States, a lot of times it really is for boater safety. Like, it's legitimately to make sure you have the proper life vest, you have fire extinguishers, you have the proper plaques on your vessel. It is to make sure that the boating community is safe, including you on your own boat, right? So usually that's what it is in the United States. But even abroad in international waters, it's not a violation, because we are enforcing United States federal law in international waters where there's no territorial waters there, right? There are no borders. So it makes perfect sense. However, when the government shuts down, unlike you all in DOD, where your funding is automatically guaranteed, we're not under DOD. It's not guaranteed because we are under a civilian federal agency. So it's this blanket thing, and we did not get paid when the government shut down. The Coast Guard, it got really bad. The commandant was, I really did feel for the commandant and the chief of the Coast Guard. I felt for them because they were in a really bad position. It was a combination of just economics, bureaucracy, management, politics. They were in a really, really complicated spot, to the point where, as you all know, at that point we got to a month, the longest shutdown in U.S. history.
Didn't USA or Navy Federal and them come in and help you guys out with some of that stuff?
It didn't get to that point. There were the scuttlebutt was there were talks for the Coast Guard to be temporarily absorbed by the Navy so that we could get paid, because we couldn't go another month.
That?
I'm sorry?
Nobody can sustain that. It's not sustainable.
Right. It's the members we have, even if you're the rank I am now in 02, if you in 02 with a husband or a wife, 2 kids, bills, and you going 30 plus days with no pay, imagine being an E2 or an E3 or an E4, right? So you're right, it can't sustain. So we were in a really bad space. Thankfully, the government opened up, the money started, to come in, and that didn't have to happen with the Navy. But the scuttlebutt was the Coast Guard was really considering it, because the institution not continue to absorb that for, let's say, another month, 2 straight months. No, it's unsustainable. It would have been unsustainable.
Hey,
but that's why we're under DHS and DOD.
I want to pivot for a second, and your background is very interesting to me, because it's theology, and it's it's policy, and a lot of different things that to me affect culture and how people think and how they behave and what they believe. And with the recent movement to acknowledging the differences that are no longer hidden in back rooms, but are actually brought to the forefront in hiring and diversity, my perception of this, as a person of color, is it seems that the pendulum has moved so far to the left, and they're saying, quick, go find a black transgender or black man to run this diversity and inclusion program for this Fortune 100 company, and just keep them there. We're not going to give them any actual authority or budget or to affect change. And it's almost insulting to me in a lot of ways. And I'd like to get your perception. If I'm wrong in thinking that, please correct me. I'd like to hear your perspective.
Yeah, so within history, there's always, and when I say within history, let's say since the Industrial Revolution, for example, right? there's always a pendulum swing in one direction, and then just the laws of nature and gravity. There's going to be a pendulum swing in the other direction in some capacity. Now, let's keep in mind, depending on the issue, that opposite pendulum swing can take 100 years. It could take 150 years. It may only take 20 years. It may only take 5 years. It depends on the issue, the culture, the time. It depends. However, there is usually a broad pendulum swing. Yes. I would like to think that as a society, we've learned the lessons from that. What you're mentioning is absolutely real, but I would push back and say it's real. Well, as I tell my students when I'm teaching them, correct but incomplete. It's correct that it's real and it happens. The incomplete part is it very often depends on the institution in question. So, for example, the Coast Guard,
authentic versus inauthentic.
The Coast Guard, we can't afford to do that. We can't afford to, okay, we're going to put you here, not really give you no branch of the military, honestly. And I would argue, hopefully, no branch of federal government, right? We're going to put you here because you check some boxes, you meet a quota. We're not going to give you the same training, so forth and so on. It doesn't work. And it's ironic you bring that up because I was having a conversation in Illinois with a non-for-profit that is working to understand the education disparities within the city of Chicago and nationwide, but focus on the city of Chicago. And I met them through my Coast Guard work. I'm not gonna put their name out there now because I was
gonna give you a chance to give a shout out, man. That's fine.
and they're still working on their thing. But yeah, they're not-for-profit. They're not based in Chicago. I think they're based in New York, I believe. And they focus on education, and now they're in Chicago. And I was telling them, I said, the military, civilian, we only make up 1% of the population. And the civilian sector, the 99%, and let's say, let's say 90, I'm, backward napkin doing math here. Let's say 95% if you count veterans, right? Just give them that, 95%. Look at the military and think, and I know, and I'm sure you all have probably experienced this. People go to the military if they can't get into college, right? You go to the military if you can't cut it in college. You go to the military if you just can't get a normal job. Not realizing that I don't know what it was like in my grandfather's time or even my father's time, but now in the 21st century, in any branch, you need to be pretty sharp because the tech that we have to learn how to use now, this isn't tic-tac-toe technology here. I mean, this isn't Fred Flintstone. We're kind of the Jetsons here, right? So you need to be pretty sharp to use. I mean, even in the Army, like it's called Army proof, but they got to have some smarts to use it. The tech is serious. So I was telling them, I said, the one thing the military has gotten right is basic training. Everyone is trained the same way by the same people who are trained the same way, and they're trained to train you the same way. There is no, you go to private school training, you go to public school training, you go to magnet school training. Basic training. Now, yes, there are people who run faster, who are physically stronger, who are better shots, who are better swimmers. Absolutely. People who are better at operations, better at management. You're always going to have people who have a skill set that exceeds what's considered the average for that skill set. That's called life and human nature. Absolutely. But everyone is trained the same way. We can't function if we have, like we do in the school system, these tiers of education, public, charter, magnet, private, yada, yada. We can't function if we do that. So we were having that conversation. I said, the military has gotten that right. We're not perfect. We got a lot of work to do, but the military has gotten that right. To your original question of the diversity and how that looks, as I stated, you're correct, but incomplete. I explained that part. But the Coast Guard, I can't speak for the other branches, I'm not in them, but the Coast Guard has acknowledged openly that it has a diversity issue, right? There is not a lot of diversity in the Coast Guard. Part of that is because we're so small. We are the smallest branch. Part of that is because the ASVAB scores required in the competition to get in is so high that, which explains why you have so many enlisted, lower level enlisted, who have bachelor's degrees when they sign up. So all of that plays a part.
I think I would add one thing to that, and while I agree with every one of those points, Vincent, I think what I saw in Atlanta, I went to Atlanta to be an officer recruiter, right? And they were in the bottom tier of diversity recruiting. And I'm like, we're in Atlanta. You got Spelman and Morehouse. I can throw a rock and hit Spelman and Morehouse. What the hell's going on? And the truth of the matter is, the white recruiters weren't going to Spelman and Morehouse because they didn't feel comfortable. And what more importantly, because the black kids at Morehouse and Spelman didn't feel comfortable going to a white guy to talk to him. So that's what you're saying is true. But I think the other half of that, if I may add, is intentionality of it. Is saying, and that's, and saying, here's what we're going to do. Here's concrete solution on how we're going to address this issue, and then executing.
Right, and that's what we're working on doing that. And to your point, keep in mind, I started this out by saying what I said about my background for a reason. I grew up on 79th and Cottage Grove. The Coast Guard recruiting station was on 87th and Cottage Grove. My high school was on 49th and Cottage Grove. It's the same street. I never saw a Coastie my whole life. Never. Because south side of Chicago, you sound like you know the south side of Chicago is black and Hispanic. The entire Coast Guard office were white men.
White dudes.
The truth, they did not feel comfortable going in, but that's where the recruiting office is. Now, why you put it there is why you put it there. That was your choice, but you should have put it there knowing the demographic of the area that you're based in, right? So there's that factor, intentionality, planning this out. How do you communicate to the different graphics about it? Another piece for the Coast Guard, and I'll throw myself under the bus here. It's not under the bus, it's just the fact. A lot of black people don't know how to swim. And there is a long-standing racial issue with regards to swimming. I mean, after the war, gentrification started happening, but in the way that at the time, a lot of America didn't like, and you had what became known as the white flight issue. Well, with the white flight issue, meaning white people living in the cities fled to the suburbs, and as suburbs start to grow, when that happened, all the resources left with them. So when you have public pools, public parks, which were everywhere, still are everywhere across the country, most public parks had a public pool. There was no pool anymore. When there was a pool, before that really happened, it was blacks can't swim in this pool. It's a whites only pool. If you lived down south, you had a better shot learning how to swim. But if you were in the Northeast or the Midwest, good luck. If you were down south or the West Coast, you had a much better shot. So there were no pools. So when the white flight happened, all those resources went to the suburbs with them. The public schools started to decline and public parks started to decline. So when I grew up, I was born in 1982. When I was growing up in Southeast DC and then moving to the South Side of Chicago, there were no pools. If you happened to find a pool, it had no water. If you happened to find a pool with water, no lifeguard, no swim instructor, a sign up that says swim at your own risk. So how am I going to learn how to swim? I joined the Coast Guard. I didn't know how to swim. Now, that was my fault. I should have learned how to swim beforehand. That made my boot camp experience far more unpleasant than it probably needed to be. But I didn't know how to swim. I learned how to swim in boot camp. And the military, as you all know, is very adept at motivating you to do what you need to do. So it was either you pass the swim test or you're going to be reverted. And instead of being in boot camp for 8 weeks, you could be in boot camp for anywhere between 10 to 12 weeks, right? Because you're going to get reverted to another company. Like, I'm not doing that. So I did the swim and the tread water in 3 days. Like, no. So I didn't know how to swim. So all of that plays a part also in why you don't have a large number of diversity in the Coast Guard, especially because you can't be a coastie if you can't swim. You have to know how to swim. So one of the things that I personally have been working on here in Chicago is encouraging parents to encourage their children to learn to swim. And that will help. That's a factor in helping increase those numbers. Because again, you can't be a coastie if you can't swim. So if you know, which most people do, well, I didn't because I just didn't. But now it's common for the most part. You have to know how to swim to be in the Coast Guard. That deters a lot of qualified applicants, both enlisted and officer alike. That deters a lot of qualified applicants. And you're absolutely right. You're in Atlanta, Morehouse, Spelman. And even if you want to leave Atlanta, the mass majority of HBCUs are in the South.
Fort Valley, all of it. Yeah.
Just throw a rock in any direction in any state, you're going to hit an HBCU if you're down south. Rent a car and drive there. But you have to feel comfortable going to those environments. Also, the Coast Guard has increased its efforts in doing this, bringing in recruiters for the academy or the real Coast Guard, as we say, who are Black and Hispanic and Asian. I got no problems going to an HBCU. They might think I'm a student.
That's a heavy lift for the few of you that are there, like with Zeta and you out, waving a flag. But it's something you definitely want to do, and you guys are definitely passionate about.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be done, or I just like my daughter is 16 months now. Let's say she decides to go to the Coast Guard, which I'm pushing for. I want her to go to the Coast Guard, and I'm having the exact same conversation with her when she's 19 years old, right? I don't want that to happen. Yeah. So what I can do to try to improve that situation is basically what I'm doing now at this moment.
Hey,
Vincent, I have to sign off. I have a medical issue to attend to, but it was a pleasure. Yeah. And Shalom, I apologize in advance. No problem. Bust out.
No, you're good, Angel. Feel good. So Vince, in Vincent rather, in closing, and the work that you are doing is hugely important. First of all, I want to start by saying the service, and I say this each and every week on the pod. We talk with people that have put the uniform on, and that alone is an act of service. And like you said a moment ago, that is something being done by less than 1%. But then there's the folks like you that are going above and beyond. And you and I talked last week. We talked again earlier, and obviously we're talking now. You are doing this not just during the day, but you're doing this in the nights as well, in trying to really spread the message. This isn't your job. This is your passion. And I know you love what you do, and you love your service. And as I always say, we all serve. Everybody, regardless of whether you put the uniform on or not, we all have a way of serving. And I know that you talked about government shutdowns earlier. You talked about some of the challenges that our brothers and sisters have had. And I know you're passionate about a cause. I just put it up there on the screen, and the mutual aid for the Coast Guard. And I want to spend a moment or two highlighting that. And then, of course, I want to make sure that people know, where they can find you on LinkedIn or wherever to talk about and share their experiences, and maybe even ask some of these questions, because it is long overdue to have somebody like you. And I hope that you can put others in touch with us so we can feature them as well.
Absolutely. The Coast Guard Mutual Assistance Program Fund is designed where it's a non-for-profit, it's a charity in many respects, but it is designed to help coasties out when they have hard times financially, to the point where I've seen the Mutual Assistance Fund give financing to coasties to buy their first car seat for their baby, right? Or a certain number of months worth of diapers or formula. Government shutdown happened. They were putting in coasties were putting in application for financial assistance to pay rent, pay bills, put gas in the car, so forth and so on. To do that, and mutual assistance is there. Coasties pay into it. It's like a charity. So when you, it's a 501. So when you pay into it, you actually get a tax, the tax form to write it off as a charity. We pay into it, and thankfully, knock on wood, I have not had to use it, but I graciously pay into it. One, because it helps shipmates out who need it now, and two, because I never know when I'm going to fall on hard times. So you pay into it to help others now, as well as, God forbid, help yourself if you need it, because, you know, the whole is the sum of its parts, right? So if you help the parts, you whole. And the Coast Guard has really become, the Coast Guard is, I hope the other branches are the same way, but I firmly believe that the Coast Guard is probably at the forefront in this capacity. Air Force might be a close second. Very much a family-oriented institute. Very much, because we're so small, very much a family-oriented institution. And that plays a huge factor in why these programs, a program like the Mutual Assistance Fund, exists. So I recommend everybody to check it out. If people are looking for me, I'm easy to find. Facebook, LinkedIn. I have Twitter. I don't really use it, but Facebook and LinkedIn, D. Vincent Thomas Jr. You just Google that. I'm pretty sure it'll pop up. You go Academy and my name. I'm pretty sure it'll pop up on Google. You can, Google investigate me, which is like the thing now. That's what everybody's doing. So it's easy to find me. So please reach out if you have any questions about the Coast Guard Academy, anything like that. I'm more than happy to help out. I've actually already talked to people about your program, trying to get you some extra coasties, so I'm not the only unicorn in your role. It's not many of us, but probably get you to half a dozen, maybe, and that'll be a lot. If you can get 6 coasties to come on here, you're doing better than a lot of people. So
you know what, I have to say, Vincent, it's funny that I was so bothered. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. I was thinking, I reflect every night, and I'm thinking about the podcast, and it's really awesome, as Angel mentioned before. Lots of people tuning in, which is awesome. But we're actually creating a challenge coin. I'll put this out there. We're creating a challenge coin for the podcast, and I was looking at the design, and I saw all of the branches, and I was like, oh my God, we have not had a single coastie on. So I go through my LinkedIn, and then I come across you, and I'm like, oh my God, we absolutely have to get Vincent on. And the crazy thing is, you are the only, I have a pretty robust network. I do. You are the only person in my network that is a coastie. And so listen.
And it's ironic because we just happened to have gone to the same school, and you lived in Evanston Light. You live in Skevinston, but lived in Evanston. I mean, I told you this. I don't know how I haven't actually literally run into you at the only Starbucks in downtown Evanston before. I have no idea. I really don't know how we haven't connected for now, because it's not that big. It's not that big.
It's true. It's very true. But I'm glad we did it, and I do hope that that everybody will support mutual assistance and understand more about what the Coast Guard does. That it's not just the folks. By the way, we're all Chicago. Angel had to step away, but we're all Chicago natives, and the Coast Guard. Is it called the station? The Coast Guard station? And that's just outside of Wilmette. Is that accurate?
Right. It's in Wilmette. You talking about Coast Guard Station Wilmette. It's a small station. They do most work in the summertime. I would jog there, because I would run from my home on Dempster Street and run through Wilmette, and I would just run up Sheridan Road going north, just run up the whole Sheridan Road and back. So I would run past and if I needed to do Coast Guard work, get on the Coast Guard terminal, I just jog up there, pop in my cat card, do my work, and then keep running. So yes, they're really active in the summertime because it's for the boating community. And that's another thing I wanted to throw out before we go about why so many people, so many minorities, Black, Asian, Hispanic, don't really know about the Coast Guard for all the reasons we mentioned before, but also those who do happen to come across the Coast Guard look at it as being this really elite institution that does work that caters more so to the well-to-do because we board boats. Boat is an acronym. Break out another 1,000, right? So because we deal with the boating community, yachts, cruise ships. So a lot of people who don't dig deep into the Coast Guard and know we do counter-narcotics, buoys. We working with dams. We work with river patrols. We do a lot. Water sanitation, cleaning up pollution. We do a lot of work. But people look at the face of the Coast Guard and they see a yacht and coasties and they figure that's not the branch for me because I'm not from that world. I didn't grow up around boats. I don't know how to swim. My family doesn't have that kind of money to even be in that realm, not realizing that that's a small sliver. That's a small sliver. So it's a lot of it's a marketing problem. When's the last time you saw a Coast Guard commercial?
No, I haven't.
We need movies that are good. We've had two. They haven't been all that good. We need movies that are good. According to the numbers, women enlisting in the Air Force and applying to the Air Force Academy went through the roof after Captain Marvel came out.
Oh my goodness.
I laugh at it too, but if you think about it, that is some primo marketing.
Yeah, it is.
It is serious marketing that you don't pay for.
So Steven Spielberg, if you're tuning in, there's an opportunity for you here. And I love what you're saying, Vincent. It's to those that know the Coast Guard from living near Navy Pier or living near the Wilmette Station, the Coast Guard is so much more. To those that know the Coast Guard from the work that's being done internationally, the Coast Guard is so much more. And and you are our brother. You are to many that are even in the military, we don't understand as much as we should. There needs to be more internal communication, more internal marketing that takes place. But I'm really honored that you chose to spend the evening with us and educate me, educate Angel, and we'll do this again. And please, send your friends over because we would love to promote what they do. And I want to finally end by saying, and I can relate to this of being a reservist. I know the balance that often takes place in juggling between sort of day-to-day business life as well as the additional duties and maintaining readiness and maintaining the ability to serve. And I know that you have juggled between active duty life, reserve life. I know that, and I know what a balance that is. And to everybody out there that knows that, shout out to you for all that you do. And as we always say, we all serve. So thank you, Vincent. Appreciate you. I encourage all of our listeners to get a hold of you, and excited to keep these conversations going.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Be safe. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you, my friend. Take care. Have a good night. Thanks for joining us.